Rogers, who will be calling our games of the week on the Squirrel Network. Tom and Coach Turney will be in Enid as Sealing travels to Enid to take on OBA. Mark and Adam Diesehorst will be at Cassidy as the Crossing Knights visit this Friday. The other expert we have on the panel, Michael Swisher. Swish has been covering high school sports in Oklahoma since 1997. He's the managing editor of the Kingfisher Times and Free Press and the voice of the Kingfisher Yellow Jackets on KingfisherSports.tv. A very special guest tonight, Mr. Cade Davis. Cade is a graduate at Elk City High School in Oklahoma, went on to play 4 years of basketball at OU, and then a pro career overseas following his graduation. Cade, tell our viewers at home where you are now and what you do.
I'm currently an assistant athletic director for the upper division at Cassidy School and the head boys basketball coach. Been there for 1 year as we've been transitioning out of the Southwest Press Conference that we've been playing in Texas, and we have just now been accepted entering into the OSSAA, and so we'll be a part of the association this year, competing in all of the sports, and so we look forward to that this year.
Looking forward to see what Cyclones basketball is able to accomplish with Cade at the helm. Our final guest typically is Jacob Diesehorst, one of the partners at Maples, Nix, and Diesehorst, but Jacob was unable to be a part of the show tonight, but he did send in his lines and his score picks, so I'll try to incorporate those into the show as much as possible. All right, guys, let's go ahead and jump into our 8 pick'em games. The Beggs Demons 1-1 on the season after a tough loss to a really good Rejoice Christian team last week. The Demons travel to Verdigris on Friday to take on the 0-2 Cardinals, who have dropped close games to Sperry and Catoosa so far this year. Mark Rogers, kick us off.
I think Tom and I both suffered our first losses last week after an undefeated week 1, but I do think that Tom has taken the lead. I had a couple of losses last week, so I think this game is going to go to Beggs. I picked against Beggs last week, one of the ones I got right, as they got beat by Regent Prep. But I think that this one will be a good game, but Beggs, I think, gets the victory. Verdigris is 0-2 this year. They're rebuilding a little bit. Very good program there in Class 3A, but I think that this one goes the way of the Demons over the Cardinals.
Tom Nelson.
Well, Verdigris has gotten off to a slow start. They've got the losses to Catoosa and Sperry. It's not a great week to expect a bounce back. Beggs is going to be a little testy. They lost 35-16 to Rejoice Christian in front of the home fans. They're going to be looking for a chance to hit somebody after a tough week of practice. Rejoice won that game last week without 3 key starters, including their starting quarterback. They held Red Martell to 74 rushing yards less than a year after he buried them with 397 yards and a 20-point Beggs playoff win last year. This is a bad spot for Verdigris. Beggs is motivated to get back on track, and they will do so.
Michael Swisher.
Yeah, I think Rejoice had something to prove last week, and they bottled up Red Martell, as Tom said, held him to 74 yards. I think now this week, the Demons are going to have something to prove, and we'll see Red kind of return to form, kind of what we expect from him. I'm going to go with Beggs in this one.
Cade Davis.
Yeah, I won't be as lengthy as the expert panel. I'll just get right to it, and I think I'll go with the majority, Beggs Demons.
All right, let's go to game number 2. 8-man football in Northwestern Oklahoma as the Pond Creek Hunter Panthers are 1-1 on the season after a big win over Deer Creek Lamont, 60-12 last week. The Panthers will take the 10-mile drive to Medford to take on the 1-1 Cardinals, coming off a big 52-0 win over Kremlin Hillsdale a week ago. Tom Nelson, you're our 8-man expert. Start us off on this football game.
This rivalry is near and dear to my heart. They call this the Grant County War. And actually, it's 10 miles from Pond Creek to Medford. It's actually 12 miles from school to school. And these two teams play each other every year, district or non-district. When I started covering this rivalry and broadcasting this game almost every year, the Medford Cardinals had the upper hand. They'd won 4 of the first 6 matchups in the 2000s, 20-some-odd years ago. But since 2004, it's been all Pond Creek Hunter. They've won 17 of 18 in the series by an average score of 49-13. Medford's picked 3rd in a tough District C1. They had no problem shutting out Kremlin Hillsdale after a 50-point loss to Covington Douglas in their first game. But my majoring stick for Pond Creek Hunter is their week 1 loss to O'Keene. Final score is 56-30 in that game. I saw O'Keene the next week beat number 2 team in Class C, Waynoka. And the fact that Pond Creek Hunter put up almost 300 yards and scored 30 points in the Whippets is all I need to see. Plus, one of my favorite high school players of all time, Tebow Tanner Bowman is the head coach for the Panthers, and they're going to make it 18 of the last 19.
Jacob Diesehorst has this game as a pick'em, but is taking Pond Creek 48-42 over Medford. Mark, your thoughts?
Well, Andy, I know you're used to billing $500 an hour, but you should do better on your preparation with the 10 miles and 12 miles.
Yeah.
12 miles in Grand County. There's a big difference in 10 miles.
Sure.
I'm going with Pond Creek. I texted Van Shea Ivan earlier. He said to me that he really hasn't kept in touch enough with the two teams, but Pond Creek for sure was going to win. Pond Creek had installed AstroTurf a couple of years ago. By the way, I was one of the few believers in O'Keene 2 weeks ago. They're really good. I think that they're going to be a team in Class B that can make some noise this year. But I'm going to go with Pond Creek in this one. And Medford still, I think, has a chance to make some noise in Class C. Tipton is the team to beat in that group, but Medford has a chance to make a run in the playoffs.
Hey, Mark, they've not only got the turf at Pond Creek, they've also got the OU-like flashing lights after every touchdown. So it's big time.
Okay. This is for another, maybe I need to do a separate commentary on this, but the LED lights, they haven't perfected that yet. I mean, we saw those in week 0 at Choctaw, and the lights don't come on fast enough. It's a toy that we haven't quite, I think, gotten it right yet. So,
Michael Fisher, we'll go to you. Pond Creek at Medford.
It's pretty apparent that Tom hacked my computer and stole all my stats that I had prepared to break down this game right here. But no, I don't think Jake Killian is that the correct name there, Tom? I don't think he's walking through that door and playing for Medford. And the other turning point for me was Greasy Steve's. I've eaten at Greasy Steve's in Pond Creek. I assume it's still open. Is it still open? Is it still there?
It is still open, and it still ain't easy being greasy.
Yeah, well, so those two things right there say Pond Creek Hunter is going to win this one.
Steve is my aunt's husband. So
really?
We've been to Greasy Steve's many times. It is definitely the food pick if you are going to, I know it's not in Medford, but if you're going to Pond Creek Hunter at Medford, Greasy Steve's is the food pick.
A lot of people would call that your uncle, but, whatever.
Fair enough. This show is off the rails already. Cade Davis, will go to you. I know you've been watching a lot of 8-man film preparing for this game.
Absolutely. You can see just the coincidences and how how it just helps you with the basketball game. There's lots of variables that play on each sport. I'm convinced again with the expert panel, and I love greasy food, so that's awesome. So yeah, we'll go with the Panthers.
I've got to say, one of the cool things about this rivalry is that when you're sitting in the press box a half hour before the game starts, you hear the cars coming up 81 to Medford or coming down 81 to Pond Creek. Horns are blaring as they come into town. The visiting fans come into town. Horns blaring, fill up the stands. That's kind of a tradition in this rivalry.
I don't want to. I will never disparage Medford, because when we were at Blackwell, we had a cinder track, and we were going to go to the state track meet, and it rained pretty hard, and so we couldn't run our own track, so we had to bus over to Medford to run on their really nice track. And so they've got great facilities there. They have for the last 35 years or more. So.
Yeah, Medford doesn't have turf, but stadium-wise and press box-wise, one of the best press boxes in 8-man football.
And Adam texted me to remind everyone that the Tasha Diesehorst won a state championship at Pond Creek in 2016, originally from Medford. So there you go. You have the Tasha Diesehorst, Tasha Turney storyline.
The Tasha Tussle. That should be the new. It's better than the Grant County War. That seems very generic.
And my co-host on the broadcast Friday night, Coach Randy Turney, did some time as a Medford Fighting Cardinals coach too. So.
Pick'em game number 3, another 8-man game in Class B. The Garber Wolverines are 2-0 after a big win over Canton, also a win over Summit Christian. The Wolverines face a tougher test this week on the road in Drumright against the 3-0 Tornadoes. Tom Nelson, start with you again.
This is a tough pick. Going into the season, both these teams were kind of picked in the middle of the pack in Class B, and while they are a combined 5-0 to start the season, quality wins were few and far between until last week. Davenport goes on the road. They blasted 5th ranked Wetumpka 66-34. Now, Garber has some firepower. They got a quarterback I've been watching for the past 3 years. He's a junior now. Brett Howard, he's been starting since his first game of his freshman year. and he's completing almost 80% of his passes this year, has almost 5,000 career passing yards. But this is going to be his first stiff test of the season. And I'm going to take last week's results into consideration a little bit. I'm going to take the hotter team. I'm going to pick Drumright in this one.
Mark Rogers.
It would have scared me if Tom would have picked the other side, Garber. I'm still not over the fact that I picked Garber to beat Cub Dug last year and they lost 50-something-0 in a run rule. So I am going with Chris Ellerick, who is a good 8-man coach at Drumright. They put up some impressive scores this year, and I would not dare go against Tom on this. So give me the Tornadoes of Drumright.
To the man who broke into Lincoln Riley's house, Michael Swisher.
Yeah.
By the way, my sources, I hate to pat Jim on the back, but my sources tell me this is a complete fabrication on Lincoln's part. And by the way, where he lives, I mean, there's no way you're just going in there spray painting a house. I mean, that you're dead by that point. So that I don't know what Lincoln was doing. I usually try to support him a little bit, but I think he's way off.
It wasn't spray paint, Mark, but I'm not gonna lie. I was shocked when I looked it up, and Drumright was 3-0. That had gotten by me. It's been a while since I think Drumright's been, a really good team. Now, this game last year, I think was 70-50. It went in Garber's favor. To be exact, Howery's completing 78% of his passes. So next time you hack my computer, let's be a little bit more precise in getting that down. But Carson Bishop was huge in this game last year, ran for over 300 yards and 6 touchdowns. They got both Bishops going for Garber. Good running attack. You got the passing attack with Howery. All that said, I'm going to go with Drumright. They fell off last year after this game. I think Drumright's going to use this game kind of as a springboard to continue playing well this season. So I'm going to go with our other 2 experts tonight.
Coach Davis.
Man, wow, that was pretty convincing. I almost wanted to go with Garber there for a minute. I'll go with the expert panel, and I'll say Drumright.
Terrible decision.
I will tell you this. I will know when this show drops because I'll probably get a text or a Facebook message from Coach Hughes over at Garber. But I'm still a Wolverine fan being here in Garfield County. But I'm trying to I got to keep it honest on this show. So.
Well, if he texts you, will you ask him what happened last year in the game that I picked him to win and they lost 55-0? I'm just curious about that.
I will do that for you.
Okay, thank you.
Drumright, a new squirrel school. So welcome to Drumright, and all the Tornadoes fans look forward to having them on the network. Let's go back to Class A for our 4th pick'em game. The Minco Bulldogs 3-0 on the season, and will host the Merritt Oilers, who are 1-1 on the year after a tough loss to Hinton and a big win over Cordell. Mark Rogers, who are you taking in this matchup?
Well, I was trying to figure out why Cade was on the show tonight, so now I know because we're predicting the Merritt game. Isn't there a place out there, Cade, that does good catfish like Greasy Steve's?
Simon's Catch?
Yeah, Simon's Catch. That's right.
Is it good? Is it really good?
It's pretty good. That's about the only place you can get some catfish.
Hopefully we'll have that on the Squirtle Food blog, which, by the way, I don't know if the budget is low, but the last blog was just within the Cashion city limits. So I don't know, Coach Hardaway must be pretty busy. Minco's pretty good this year. I think Merritt, their basketball team's been good. And I know Skinny and all those guys that do radio in Elk City are pretty proud of what the Merritt Oilers are doing. But I'm going to go with Minco in this game. Sorry, Cade. I got to pick against the Beckham County squad.
Coach Hardaway did text me and said that the salads at the pizza joint in Cashion are really good. So if you need a good salad, you can drive to Cashion and go to Flour and Fennel Pizza.
No one has salad at a catfish place. That's not part of anyone's diet.
Can they deep fry the salad there?
Probably not.
Tom Nelson will go to you. Merritt at Minco.
Well, Merritt can score some points. They scored 70 last week in a huge win over Cordell, but they're going to run to a Bulldog team that looked pretty darn good again last week. They beat a good Apache team by 10 on the road and moved up a little further in the top 10 in Class A. Minco has won twice in the series since 2020. The score was 20-7 last year at Merritt. I like what Minco is doing. I'm going to pick the Bulldogs again. Minco.
Michael Swisher.
Yeah, I'm I look at that Merritt loss to Hinton, and I think Hinton's got a good squad. They're a physical team, and I think that's also something that Minco is always going to do, be a little bit physical, and I think that's just going to give Merritt some problems. So I'm going to go with Minco as well.
Okay, Davis.
Yeah, so this is interesting. I've got a couple of things about this pick. Is one, even though I've had the close relationship with Merritt, there is no loyalty there to the orange and black, and especially those colors never do rub me the right way anyway. So also, I
Fairview.
believe we've got yeah. So also, I believe our last game on the schedule this year for Cassidy is against Minco, and so not to ruffle their feathers as well, but I will go with Minco so that maybe they don't have any extra added juice for us at the end of the season. So,
All right, the entire panel taking the Bulldogs of Minco. We'll go to pick 'em game number 5. The Poto Pirates have been a power in Class 4A for the past several years and have another good year brewing here with 2-0 so far with wins over Bishop Kelly and Metro Christian. The Pirates play host to another undefeated team, the Chandler Lions, this Friday. Chandler has defeated Stroud and Bristow so far this season. Mark, what do we watch for in this game?
It should be a good game. I think this is a great non-district matchup that they scheduled. Kind of two teams from different parts of the state challenging each other. I picked against Chandler last week, and they were able to beat Bristow at home. So congratulations to the Lions for a big win. But I think Poto's really good this year. They have a ton of returning players. Dax Collins, a 3-year starter format running back and linebacker. It's a good player. So I'm going to go with Poto, the Pirates. And if you're going to Poto, you got to get there early. You should go to Warehouse Willie's. It's an incredible place. They open at 5, and it's already going to be packed. So you have to get there about 6:15 for the second seating. But they have great steaks, and it's really cheap. So I would suggest Warehouse Willie's. By the way, Swish, what's your partner's name on the Kingfisher broadcast?
Sean Scamelhorn.
Yeah. Okay. Is he the one that did not like Taco Stop in Ponca City? Because I mean, the credibility is just all gone from that.
He's one of at least 2 who did not appreciate your recommendation. And the other one may or may not be the superintendent at Balco Public Schools right now, Keith Campbell. But I'm not going to let that out of the bag. I'll let you try to figure out who that is.
It's been open since the 70s. I don't know what's wrong with your friends, but
well, all I know is I learned the lesson. Don't go order the Casadia.
That's my favorite.
Yeah.
I order 3 every time.
You mean quesadilla? Yeah, that's what I mean. I'm sorry.
It's Tex-Mex.
Yeah.
Quesadilla. There's no L's.
Yeah. Cade is wondering what in the world he got into right now.
Yeah, I'll try to rein this one back in. We'll go to Tom Nelson.
Chandler won a late touchdown pass last week, 21-14 over Bristow, and coupled with their win over Stroud before that, the Lions are showing their career. But we're going to find out how real this week. They go on the road, take on the number 2 team in Class 4A at Poto. Pirates looked good, dispatching Metro Christian 24-7 last week. Mark mentioned Dax Collins. He's going to Tulsa next year. Poto has an enrollment that's exactly twice the size of Chandler. That means they should be able to wear down the 2A Lions. Chandler is stepping up in class in more ways than one. I think Poto's got this one pretty handily.
All right. I'm hesitant to even do this, but Michael Swisher, give us your pick on Chandler at Poto.
Hey, man, I didn't start that. I just answered some questions. But Chandler's a good team, a good 2A team. They got some balance with the quarterback, Alec Jackson, a good receiver in Holland, running back Carson Clegg. I mean, they've got the weapons, but Poto is a big step up in competition, and those are 2 very solid wins that Poto has. I mean, to beat Kelly and Metro, to hold Metro to 7 points, very impressive. So I just think it's going to be tough for Chandler to score, and I'm going to go with Poto to win this one.
Hey, Davis.
Yeah, go Poto Pirates.
I like it. Entire panel taking Poto. We'll go to game number 6. Jeff Craig's Blanchard Lions are 1-1 on the season. Tough loss at Piedmont last week. Blanchard hosts the 1-1 Shawnee Wolves. This week, the Wolves took down Ardmore 28-13 a week ago. Tom Nelson started us off with Shawnee at Blanchard.
Well, Shawnee ended a 15-game losing streak, with that win last week, beating Ardmore 28-13, their first win since the middle of the 2021 season. They're behind going into the fourth quarter, scored 3 touchdowns in the final 12 minutes to win that game. Dietrich Beavers has been a workhorse, rushing for over 250 yards and average over 10 yards a carry. this is not a great time for Shawnee to catch Blanchard. Carson Cooksey had his fourth least productive game of his career last week. They lost to Piedmont 21-7. They're going to be gunning for a bounce back against a team that they beat 40-13 a year ago. I think they will have a big bounce back. Blanchard's going to roll.
Mark Rogers.
Yeah, I think Blanchard wins. Blanchard struggled last week against a Piedmont team that I think is really good. If you look at Class 5A District 2, you've got Guthrie in there that's had 3 shutouts. You got Carl Albert, who's incredible. McGinnis has bounced back better than I thought that they would. And then you've got Piedmont, who I think in another year, all those 4 teams could be district champions. So I don't hold that loss against Blanchard. Hopefully they'll get some of their injured players back. Jason Madonna's doing a nice job at Shawnee in his first year there on the job. And they did get a good win last week at Ardmore. So erasing the memories of last year's winless season. I think this is a kind of a series that would be really good if they played every year. But I go with Blanchard in the game tomorrow night.
I've done an absolutely terrible job giving Jacob Dieselhorst lines and picks, but on this matchup, he has Blanchard minus 28 and winning 42-15. So Michael Swisher, there you go.
All right, Cade, listen up. Gonna give you some advice right here. Say some good things about Carson Cooksey. Just do it. It might pay off for you from, say, November to February, March. If you run into a guy named Brad Cooksey, who well-known official, and that's his son, Carson Cooksey, I believe, who plays for Blanchard. Of course, Brad and his younger brother, Eric Smith. I'm sorry, Chris Cooksey. Sorry about that, guys. Very much well-known in the officiating circles, but you're going to run across a Cooksey somewhere there, Cade. So say something good about Brad Cooksey, and he's
That's why he has C on his shirt.
Yeah, absolutely. He knows what he's doing already. But yeah, it's gonna be all Blanchard in this one.
To you, Cade.
Yeah, well, I'll take the Blanchard Lions, and because of Mr. Cooksey and his wonderful abilities, and to see all things and correct. Yeah, we'll hopefully that'll pay off, and yeah, go Lions.
Cade, are you a Lon Kruger guy on the sideline, or are you a Kelvin Sampson guy on the sideline?
Or a Billy Tubbs guy on the sideline?
Being in the SBC conference last year, I took more of a Lon Kruger approach just to make sure that I was abiding by, the philosophy of things, mind, body, spirit. I might need to shake a little more of the core this year in my boys, so you might see a little more Sampson as we enter the formidable competition of the OSSAA. So, however, we do bring with us a championship, so that was an exciting first year for us to go down there as we left and pick up that ring. So exciting for them to build on as we enter this next season. So.
I've got to say really quick before we move on to the next pick, I did have the good sense to forego trying to break in as many Madonna songs into my script as I could, but I didn't do that. So I was thinking about it, though.
All right, we'll go to game number 7, and this is our first Squirrel Network game of the week. Sealing at OBA. They squared off twice last season. OBA won the first matchup in the regular season, but Sealing was dominant as the teams met in the state semifinals there. Both of these teams undefeated so far this year, but Sealing had a very impressive 46-28 win over defending state champion Laverne a week ago. Tom, you're calling this game. Give us a preview.
Yeah, most everybody knows they played twice last year. OBA shot up the rankings when they went out to Sealing and won 50-34. That was a year ago this week. We broadcast that game on Squirtle. Sealing got their payback in December. They shut out OBA 46-0 in the state semis. The next week, Laverne took the gold ball, beating Sealing 36-28. Of course, last week, Sealing gets some payback. They handle Laverne 46-28. And then the Tigers, that was the Tigers' worst loss since losing to Dewar back in the gold ball game in 2020. The two quarterbacks for the focal points of their teams. For Sealing, it's Cade Manuel, Coach Gary Manuel's son. He triggers that RPO, the run-pass option. You might remember in last year's loss to OBA, he was knocked out of that game with an injury. He bounced back okay and led them to the state championship game. OBA doesn't have the weapons they had last year, but they do have Judd Cheatham back. He plays quarterback, but reverts back to his old role once in a while. He's he's caught 3 passes this year for 45 yards and a touchdown, and he's rushed for almost 600 yards. Coach Kayott told me yesterday that he's just trying to kind of put his limited roster in positions to be successful. This is the 5th matchup all time, and Sealing leads the series 3-1. Sealing jumped up to number 1 in Class B, and OBA's number 5 this week. We'll see how this top 5 battle turns out in the Squirtle game of the week. I'm not going to pick it because I'm going to be there, but Sealing's pretty darn good.
Jacob Dieselhorst has this game Sealing -6.5, but winning 40-34. Mark?
Well, you guys mentioned Kelvin Sampson, and I'm still scared to death after doing his coach's show at one time. We sit down and they played Oklahoma State and UConn. This is 2004. They lost 86-69 to UConn, and he walks in, and I've been instructed to be there on time every time. So I got there. I think we taped at 1. I was there at 11:15, and Coach looks at me and says, "You're going to earn your money today." I have to look in the highlights of those 2 games, and I've kind of froze up. So anyway, Kelvin definitely could get the most out of a team, just like Gary Manuel can do at Sealing. His son, Caden, is healthy. I texted him today to get a little bit of a kind of a synopsis on the game, and he goes, he's not really ever one to tout his own team. So this is a tough game, 2 really good programs, but I'm going to go with the Wildcats. They're beaten up a little bit, but I'm going to go with Sealing in this game in a close one.
You know, Mark, I remember that UConn OU game well. Ben Gordon, Emeka Okafor, Charlie Villanueva, and Josh Boone, all starters for that UConn team right off the top of my head. So
national champions.
The other ones.
They went to the Final Four in San Antonio, same year that Oklahoma State went and beat Georgia Tech in the finals. That was one of the better teams of that decade.
Really good team. Michael Switcher, let's go to you, Sealing at OBA.
You guys are doing all this Kelvin and lawn talk, man. And Cade was Jeff Capel guy. I mean, he played for Coach Capel. And if memory serves, Cade was Coach Capel's first commit. Am I correct in that, Coach Davis? Were you the first one to commit to Coach Capel when he got here?
That is correct. And then I immediately started on my recruiting skills and called Blake Griffin and made sure that he was in the Crimson and Cream. So yeah.
And I'm going to keep going here. I have a hunch that I'm not personally, but an outfit I was worked with was responsible for you being on your first magazine cover, the Oklahoma Tip-Off magazine. You were in a photo shoot with Mr. Griffin and Nick Sidoricus, who was at Jinx and went to Oklahoma State. And the original plan was for all 3 of you to be predominantly featured on the cover of that magazine. And then they took a shot of Mr. Griffin showing that big bicep of his, and our editor said, "Oh, yeah, that's our shot." And that's my favorite cover. It just said Big Blake. And then, I'm sorry, Cade, you and Nick were kind of stuck down in the corner of the magazine there, but you were on the cover of my favorite Tip-Off magazine.
And I continued to play my role for the next 2 years after that perfectly for him. So, shout out to him, shout out to me. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Somebody's got to throw him the ball, baby.
And let's see. And all that said, I'm going to go with Sealing.
You're going to ask him about what Tommy Mason Griffin was doing? Never mind. That's another story.
That's a whole nother podcast, I think.
Okay. Yeah, that's right.
Only breaking freshman records left and right as when
he can score.
Yeah.
He had to get out of his apartment to do it.
Yeah.
I hit up Austin Smith. He covers Sealing for the Dewey County Record. Does a great job covering them. He's been at everything Sealing for the last several years. And I just kind of hey, who are some of the top guys to look out for? And obviously knowing about Caden Manuel, but he said he could go on and on. He listed about 6, 7, or 8 guys. And basically it's, if Sealing goes in focused and stays healthy in this game, with giving OBA every bit of respect they deserve, but this is a game that Sealing should win.
Okay, Davis, we'll go to you.
Yeah, I mean, Caden's pretty close to Caden, so we'll go with Sealing for the win.
I like it.
I do have to say one thing. Mentioning the Blake Griffin is one of my all-time favorite broadcasting memories from my high school basketball radio broadcasting days. Was back when I believe it was Crescent played OCS the state tournament, and I think about that now. It's like watching Blake Griffin with the Clippers play against Crescent. And I just think about that. My memory of Blake Griffin in high school and just dunking all over Crescent that day is one of those lasting memories that's in my memory forever.
I mean, that team, if you think you think about it, Wilson Holloway went on to play at Tulsa. You had Blake, you had his brother Taylor, you had the Phillips brothers, Tyler and Tucker, who both went on to play at UCO. And all of these guys, Eric Johnson was their point guard that year. I mean, when we all played athletes first together on that travel ball team, so those guys were getting year-round work together. So pretty amazing team in and of itself. So.
All right, our second Squirrel Network game of the week features the Crossings Christian Knights as they take the short drive to Cassidy to take on the Cyclones. Both teams undefeated so far this season. Mark, you and Adam are on the call on Friday, so tell us what to watch for in this matchup.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the game. And by the way, Kate looks really sharp tonight. And usually when Adam and I go to a game of the week, we get a nice little swag bag. So if we can get some of that Cassidy team issued gear, it'd be really cool.
Under the assistant AD
deal.
duties, I have control over that. So you don't worry. Yeah, I think we can help you out there.
We
That
need
sounds
sizes. What are the sizes right now, guys?
Adam needs a large. I need a 4X.
He wears a medium.
I've called Nike and they don't have sizes that big,
Okay. Well, XL will work. I think Ty Prestige, I really love Ty. He's done a great job. This is his 49th year of coaching overall. And I think that they've really kind of energized the Cassidy football program. This will be a really good game. So Cassidy's had a couple of good wins in the first couple of weeks of the season. I expect this one to be really close, closer than the games that we've done so far. So I'm going to take Cassidy, but I think it will be within a touchdown and expect it to be kind of a low-scoring game. And both teams, I think, are pretty good. So looking forward to being at Hoop Gibson Field on Friday night to call this game between Crossings and Cassidy.
Tom Nelson.
Oh, Mark and I are going to differ on this one. The Cyclones are spending their last season as an SAE and independent before they can join the district next year, which means that with no chance of making the playoffs, they're motivated to make every game a playoff game, and this one's no exception. Cassidy 3-0, having beaten Community Christian Heritage, and Crooked Oak. They're 3-0 against schools that start with a C, and look who's next coming up. Crossings and Cassidy have a common opponent in Community Christian. Cassidy won 24-17. Crossings beat CCS 21-13, so you can't get much out of that. Crossings is 2-0. They've beaten Cassidy the last 2 years, 30-3 and 43-6. They've been getting it done with the run game. The first two games led by Jonah Neer with 212 yards rushing. Last week, averaged almost 9 yards a carry. I think Cassidy's improving. I think they will play hard, but the Crossings Knights still have a little bit more in the tank, and I think they'll get the win.
Michael Swisher.
Okay, so we're going to go back to basketball. Tom brought up Crescent, making the state tournament. So Crescent's coach at that time was Bart Watkins, now the assistant superintendent at Blanchard. So, I'm tying it into our show here. But Crescent made the state 3 years in a row. Their first year, they got Keaton Page in Pawnee, his freshman year. That, of course, they went on to win it. The next 2 years, they got Blake and OCS in the first round of state. So that was their reward for making it 3 years in a row. Kind of Bart Watkins' claim to fame right there. But yeah, all that said, let's see. I actually have gone back and forth on this one, and I was kind of hoping to go against the grain with what the first two guys picked, but you guys didn't help me out there by splitting it. But I am going to say that run game with Jonah Neer is going to be the deciding factor. I'm going to go with Crossings as well.
Come on, Cade. Let's go. You know what to do.
I love it. I love it to be a little different on this one here. So if it's not clear enough, we're going to go with the Cassidy Cyclones. Again, positive comments with Ty Presses and what he's done with the program over the last year. The score last year being 33-3, a little lopsided, but it was 3-0 at halftime, and we put up a good fight and had some turnovers and just kind of lost our way there in the second half. So hopefully, from what I've seen this year, we've got a little bit more push and a little bit more endurance to last for the whole game, and I think we'll see a little different outcome. hopefully this year.
There's only one way to decide this. It's Andy referees and Kate and I take you guys on a 2-on-2. We're going to play for $1,000.
Hey, I'm 6'7", but I am 56, so I'm not getting up and down the court very well right now. But
We're going to play for $5,000 if you think this is competitive.
I got Kate, I got a question for you. Okay, there's nothing at the end of the line for Cassidy, no playoffs, so you're playing every game with nothing, no kind of postseason in the offing. What is the mindset of the players, do you think, with that mentality? It's been like that for a couple of years now, right? I mean,
Kate's playing. They're in the OSSAA. Basketball is ready to roll.
Yeah, basketball. I'm talking about football right now. They don't have a postseason situation, though. What do you think the mindset is for the kids who, are just playing for the regular season right now?
Well, I mean, you've got seniors who are, vying to hopefully, gain scholarships and continue on their careers. And that, that's a big part of what we're wanting to build there as an athletic department and organization at Cassidy, to push on those goals and help those guys, meet those expectations that they need in order to do those things. And again, it's setting up a culture, for the program, for what it needs to be next year, in order to compete for state championships. And so it's a lot to kind of leave that legacy that you want to continue on, so that you foster that growth in that program, as we have the youth come up and into the ranks. So and again, Ty is just building up, staying in the moment, experiencing that, and it does matter what you do now as it echoes on. So
look no further than OBA. Remember, they went 10-0 2 years ago as an independent. They were moving from 11-man to 8-man, went 10-0, and then the next year just took those guys and went all the way to the state. One loss all the way to the undefeated, all the way to the state semifinals. So that's good, something good to look forward to right there.
Well, if we value the football and we make and we limit our turnovers, it'll be like you said, it'll be a tight game at the end, hopefully. So.
Back to our basketball game real quick before we close this out, Andy. Swish is probably going to get loose on me a couple of times. Kay, do you think you can shut Tom down? He's 6'7". I mean, you feel like you can still score on him?
My last year at OU, I basically became an undersized 4-man, and I had to tackle such individuals. So, and I feel like I held my own most of the time. And then transferring that skill overseas, we you kind of learn to play every position. So 1-on-4 is fine with me if you guys want to go at it. So
I'm pretty
I'm
crafty.
an in and out type of guy. All right, we're on. This game is going to happen.
I ain't leaving the paint. I'm not leaving the paint.
I'm telling you, I'm pretty crafty. I've talked a lot of basketball with Jim Deaton at Sherlock, so I'm pretty sure it'll be pretty tough to beat. 2-on-2, 3-on-3, doesn't matter. I know the game of basketball thanks to that guy.
Have the defibrillator there, though, because I'm going to probably need it.
Kate, who was your toughest matchup there when you were playing the 4 your senior year?
Man, gosh. Well, I remember a lot having to play against Mike Singletary, Texas Tech, and then and I bring his name up first is because let me see. Think about this. 9 years later, playing in Southeast Asia in the Asian league out there, he was playing in Vietnam. I believe it was Vietnam. Yeah, Vietnam. And I was in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, and we linked up. And so small world, and basketball is great for that reason. So
that's the one thing, Kate. I'll interject this. You played around the world overseas. It's unbelievable where you'll run into players at, isn't it? That you might have dealt with back in college or something.
Absolutely, man. I mean, it's great that they've continued on their careers. I ran into Cameron Clark in Turkey, one of my teammates, and it's great the connections that basketball has created for all of us, and just the resourcefulness of being able to do and see. It's certainly a global game now with all the drafts. A lot of them coming over from Eastern Europe, which is where I started my professional career, and what a bunch of stories I could tell about that place and how they love the basketball game. So it's fantastic. Really appreciate everything basketball's done for me. So
Kate, I meant to ask you this at the beginning of the show, and I didn't get it done. You talked about winning a ring last year. Your Cyclones there at Cassidy. Talk about this coming year and what to watch for with the Cyclones.
Yeah, well, we've got some leadership this year. Not that we didn't have that last year, but we have some for the OSSAA. We've got Bryson Buckingham, Peyton Mitchell Johnson, and Caden Leach, who are going to be kind of the our leaders in the front court, and we've got some guys with some length and span. But we'll definitely want to play up and down and shoot a lot of threes as long as they get their percentages correct and earn the green light to do so. And so we'll look to kind of push the pace. It's interesting, the transition. We played with a shot clock last year in the SBC, and so that's one thing that we're going to have to adjust to, is not having that around. And so pace of play, clock management, that'll be something these guys are going to have to learn, whereas that was just kind of the natural flow of play that we had to adapt to last year in the SBC. So
Does Mark have,
what's your take on that, on the shot clock for high school basketball?
Need to hire another attendee on the scoreboard,
won't
down
be
on
long.
the sideline. So
It won't be long.
Let's make it happen.
does Mark have the green light in your game to shoot threes? Mark, what's your 3 percentage here?
Yeah, there you go. Let's ask a few little inquiring questions. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what? Some of them go in. I'll shoot free throws with anybody but Cade in this panel.
I'll go rebound.
And that is including you, Andy.
I could dunk until I was 42, but that was 14 years ago. Or actually, yeah, 14. That's not happening anymore. But I could dunk until I was 42. So
I've only dunked on people that have a goal that could be lowered down to about 7.5 feet, and then I threw down some really crazy, massive stuff. So
I'd break your hip even.
Yeah,
I'd break your hip if I tried that now. Even now. So.
Well, Cade, thank you for joining us tonight as a guest on our show. Really appreciate having you here. Hopefully, you're not scarred too much from being on the show with these 3 experts. But and again, thanks to all the fans for joining us every week on the Squirtle Pay Dirt Pick'em Show, sponsored by Maples, Knicks, and Diesel Horse Law Firm. You can watch all of these 8 games that we discussed tonight on Squirtle.tv or the Squirtle app, or you can watch Squirtle Pay Dirt to get to watch the biggest plays from these matchups. We'll be back next week with new guests and 8 more great games, and we'll see you then.